Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of SporticoLive, where we examine all things in sports business. Today, much like franchises that are really focusing on real estate, you see lots of entertainment pavilions and districts because these teams are really platform companies these days. Well, it's the same for the athletes. They also look to real estate to be part of the portfolio. And we're going to spotlight Ndamukong Suh today of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Ndamukong, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Scott. This is it's always a pleasure to speak with you, and excited to really talk about some good real estate.
Great, and I also want to say that Joel Anderson, your business partner, is here as well. Joel, welcome.
Hey, thanks so much for having us. Really, it's a pleasure to be able to talk about this kind of stuff. Love it.
Yeah, great. Yeah, and I do want to talk about it because it is often overlooked, sort of the portfolios and some of the sexy tech investments are getting a lot of play these days. But real estate does not. And it's such an integral part of major pro sports, but people don't think about it from the athlete perspective as it's part of portfolio. But as I was preparing Ndamukong, it really occurred to me that football is at its core a game of real estate, is it not? You might use some of the more valuable real estate, sort of those line of scrimmage. You got to control the real estate, right?
There's no question you got to control the real estate. And when you obviously put it into sports context and in really the concept of being able to control real estate and being able to have the ability to say, all right, one, I want to control my line of scrimmage, but at the same time, I want to have people come and enjoy my stadium. And I think where these owners have been very successful is being able to own in and around their stadiums and their complexes, great pieces of real estate that afford fans and people in the city to enjoy and be entertained. But I think when myself and Joel look at it from a perspective of really, it's about generational wealth and being able to pass it down to our kids and being able to not only change the communities that we're involved in, but more importantly, be able to help others along the way to understand this is how people sustain and continue to grow and have a long lasting generational life.
Scott,
how did you guys meet?
One of the things.
Well, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I'm a few years older than Sue, and my brother and Sue played AAU basketball together, and so they were, kind of rug ratting while I was a little bit older, and so I've known Sue for about 25 years, I guess, something like that, plus or minus. And Sue's AAU basketball coach works for me at my construction company, and now all these years later, and so as we started looking at some different opportunities together, we started a real estate investment company for athletes, which was a really interesting experience, and Sue. So I had reached out to Sue to see if he was interested in participating in that, and that's really when I got to see him in his first light as an entrepreneur, and I was really attracted to the way he thought about things and the questions that he asked and the energy that he had behind business and particularly real estate.
And Ndamukong, I love following you on Twitter, because you do get into some of the business matters and you ask your followers, are you interested in this? Do you want to hear more? And I love, here's your investment philosophy. And I like the parentheses in order. Make it big, make it game changing, make it profitable. And then of course the be all, make it exit. Where did you learn, or how did you come up with the philosophy? Did it happen over time?
I think it's learning experiences and being able to be around other people who've had great successes. Probably one of the main reasons why I went to Miami was to learn from one of the great owners and related. You have Stephen Ross, who owns an amazing company, and see how they've built things, but also being able to have mentors and people like Joel, a part of my business acumen, and really just understanding how things kind of grow and get put together. And so as we talk about all those different steps, yes, exiting is a great thing, but also exiting is also looking at a form of cash flow, and to where it's kind of get the mailbox money. But you want to be able to build something that's going to be game changing and not only change your life, but other people's life, and being able to add value as we talk about all the different things that we want to create in the real estate world. And so I like it in that specific order because, yes, you want to be able to make money. You want to be able to do things. You don't want to do them from a perspective of, I guess, for lack of better words, not a loss leader, because I don't think you need to do that. I think you can find a win-win situation all around.
You are now the second athlete that has told me you picked your destination partly not only because of on-field possibilities of winning or contract, but you wanted to be around Steve Ross and his real estate empire and related companies. Andre Iguodala told me he went to the Warriors originally because he wanted to have access to Joe Lacob and Kleiner Perkins and sort of the Silicon Valley. Do you hear that in locker rooms? That this is a thing now, that athletes are looking to align themselves with owners that can in some way act as tutors or assistants in terms of a player's off-field portfolio?
I'm not sure if it's a big thing in the locker room. I would say it's something that I particularly focus on, to foster relationships. I was able to leave Nebraska and foster a great relationship with Warren Buffett. Obviously, us both being a graduate of UNL, at the same time being able to just connect with other folks that I aspire to be similar to. And it's not really about recreating the wheel. It's understanding how they've gone into themselves and been successful, but then obviously putting my own personal twist on that. And then I'm having like-minded partners, as my partner Joel on this call. We look at things very similar, and I think we it's really a yin and yang how we look at it. And he's very, very sharp in his aspects, and I'm very, very sharp in my aspects, and it kind of comes together to make a big opportunity at hand.
Yeah, that's true. They say if you want to be successful, know what your weaknesses are, and then you surround yourself with people whose strengths fill those weaknesses. Joel, what's your strength? What's his weakness? What's your weakness? What's his strength?
Sue is one of the most diligent and deliberate people I've ever been with, not just from a business standpoint, just in terms of he is meticulous, he's detailed. You can see it in the way he prepares, of course, for football, but he attacks life and business in that same capacity. Details are not something that I do at all, right? Sue has got notes from every meeting we've ever had. I don't have any notes from.
I'm hearing the big picture idea guy, big picture, big
Exactly.
thinker, and Dominican has to bring you down to earth
No,
and say, whoa, the horses, Joel.
it is.
There's a yin and yang there.
It's a
'cause
real
I'm big
yin and
picture
yang.
too.
It really is.
In and ego, or ego and super ego, one or the other.
No, it's a beautiful partnership in the sense that, both of us are doing it to make a better community that we live in for our kids. The need for ourselves is not the driver, and certainly not the need to say we did something isn't the driver. So we're very much aligned there, but our approach to how we attack and where our strengths are is great. Sue is, as you can imagine, his life has been a confrontation, right? He lines up against somebody with the intention of crushing them to the ground. And my tack is much more diplomatic in approach. And there are times when you do need to be able to run somebody over in a business-like way where you just need to say that's unacceptable. And there are other times when you got to approach it more diplomatically. And our ability to be both of those things as a partnership is really special. And it's been very beneficial in terms of the work that we've been able to do, and quite frankly, in how we've made each other better in our time together.
Give me a peek, if you will, into the due diligence that you guys do on potential properties or projects. Where does that begin, and how do you guys work out whether, yes, this is a good thing for us, or this one has a caution light, and this one's stop red, we want no interest?
Well, I think I'll start off with this piece and let Joel chime in, but really that caution light started at the very beginning of our relationship, from the standpoint of, all right, why we created HMS development, from this perspective. Like, I got an influx of deals of saying, all right, hey, I want to use your money, I want to use this, and
I want to
went
use
through
your money. Yeah, I bet you're
and
inundated with
I'm just
offers of I have an idea and I want to use your money.
and I'm just being frank about it, and just because that's how a lot of athletes are, in really primary investors, accredited investors are approached. Hey, this is what I want to do with your funds, and this is what's going to come, and you're going to then get X, Y, and Z. Versus it being more of a relationship how we like to work, where it's more pari passu. You can be involved as much as you like, and we're open book, open table. You can come look at all the different pieces. We can walk through it with you. I mean, we have meetings later on this week that we're actually going to do that on a handful of our projects. And then also at the same time, we look to help and better other people when Joel alludes to not just looking at selfishly how we can be beneficial from our particular projects. And I think that's where our alt cap system is really that game changing aspects, where we can not only help the community build it up to a better place, but then also help the surrounding community. Because I've never known a place that hasn't been successful and been in great shape when other people in that community are a part of those buildings and those aspects of everything coming to life and really building it up from the perspective of rather it being blight or just finding a way to grow the city, and whether it's young professional housing, affordable housing, market rate housing, all those different pieces. When you allow people to be a part of it, I mean, they just want to continue to carry that on, and there's a different type of care that goes into that surrounding.
Okay, but it does seem like there's an element of social good here, and not just straight up what's the return on investment.
100%. When you had asked what's it look like, that's actually a great segue into how we look at a deal. And what's awesome about real estate is it's this incredible math problem, right? You're solving for X, right? And so it's big and complicated, and you're trying all these different variables to determine, can you put together the right components to get a yield that's worth doing? Because at the end of the day, you are a fiduciary to your fellow investors and yourself, right? So you don't want to do something you don't want to build an icon that just got your name on it that never made a return of anything. That would be imprudent. That would be a waste of your abilities and your talents and your capital. So first, we're looking at, can we justify a return that's worth the investment? But on the heels of that, it becomes, if we can do that, how can we do it within the community to create a positive impact? And so that's the question. Is there's a lot of deals. I mean, that was what Sue alluded to at the beginning, which was people were constantly saying, hey, are you interested in being a part of this? We'd love you to be a part of this. And I told them, man, you want to be a part of something. They just want your money. They may disguise it as this. If you want to be a part of something, then you need to start your own thing. And he was like, all right, then I want to. Let's do it. And we literally started the next day. And but it was built on a social conscious platform. And I will say that Sue and I have this privilege of, we've had, relatively successful day jobs that have enabled us to think about development from a bigger, broader capacity than just how much can we line our pockets with, right? And that ideology, the contemplation around how can we allow other people in from a community standpoint that have been for almost our entire history of a country excluded or marginalized from those opportunities in all different capacities. How can we let them be a part of this? And in many cases, through our alt-cap platform, earn at a disproportionately higher rate than the rest of us, in an effort to really create equality. And I feel very fortunate, we both do, for the ability to be able to look at deals that are socially minded, as opposed to just how much money we can make.
Yeah, Jason Wright, the president of the Washington football team, wrote an op-ed for us on how football specifically, but I think we can go wider, sport can contribute and help to close the racial wealth gap. This seems to be taking step two, that the notoriety and, of course, the revenue, what you've earned playing football, now step two, it's one step removed, but clearly a mission statement is to help close the racial wealth gap.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'd be sitting here lying if I didn't want to help my people in my community and the folks that I'm around, whether that's my close friends and family, let alone other people that have helped me get to where I am at right now in my own profession, from a sports perspective, but also even from an educational perspective, because there's a lot of people that did help me get to where I am at right now. So it's not only being able to pay it forward, but then also being able to look at the young kids growing up that aspire to be similar to me. I enjoy in being tagged on and pulled on and saying, hey, I want to play football, but I also want to get an engineering degree and have it be useful when I get out of playing my sport or when I retire or and leave collegiate sports. And that's something that I've always been super proudful that I've been able to do that and really just kept my word to myself, let alone my parents, to saying, hey, I'm going to go enjoy sports. I'm going to have a great time. I promised my mom I'd graduate from college. I knocked that out of the box. And then I told my dad I was going to come back and be a part of his company. Instead of, I ended up buying his company and being a part of my company. And we're off and running from that perspective. So I think that's where I'm excited about where my life has continued to grow. And it's great to have great people and great partners like Joel.
Yeah, it's nice for the name of a company, I would assume, to have the N Sons tacked on the end, N Son or N Sons. What does HMS stand for, by the way?
Go. You want to take it, Joel?
No, you're the namesmith.
Yeah. Well,
This was you came up with the name, Ndamukong? You were the one?
Yeah, me and my wife. So it's House of Spears is obviously the meaning of my first name, and Anderson is you have the meaning of it is man, and so we have the House of Man and Spears is where we've created the name, and just rolls off the tongue pretty nice with HMS.
Yeah, it does. Usually, I would say 99% of the time when you get that, it's just a person's initials. So I was curious as to what the genesis of that was. Joel Anderson and Ndamukong Suh. I'm like, I don't see the H, I don't see the M, well, the S could have been Sue, but I'm glad we got that explanation. How much homework did you do in Dominica? I'm curious, and you too, Joel. I was a bit of an amateur real estate player when I was buying and selling apartments in New York City. But I was a moron, an uneducated moron after deal number one, in which I paid my full cap gains taxes because I had never heard of a like-kind exchange. But, needless to say, then I 1031 became an interesting number in my life as I continued. How much homework did both of you have to do, and how much learning still goes on?
I think there's a lot of learning that goes on and continues to grow, especially with the CARES Act and all the different things that have gone on and just different changes of the rules. But I think the most important piece that we love as investors and really real estate professionals, as I've officially become that, and Joel has been one for a long period of time, is depreciation. So depreciation is our best friend, and being able to have that a part of our deals and knowing how to accelerate.
For people who don't understand what that means, either Joel, can you explain what you mean by depreciation is your best friend?
So most people, like if you're looking at, particularly for athletes, right? This is where it's so important. The best advice that could ever be given to athletes early in their career is invest as much money as you can in real estate in those early years, because you can take advantage of what the IRS and the government allows via depreciation and interest expense. And so they are what is often termed, if people have heard the phrase, of a paper loss. And so it's not an actual loss, but it's the reality that you have bought a building or you've built a building, and it is becoming, those materials, the value associated with that is actually diminishing over time. And the government allows you to take that diminishment year over year, and you can accelerate it. And you can say, well, some of these things are going to be they're going to burn out really quick. In the first year, they're going to lose a lot of value. And then you can take a depreciation over the balance of 27 and a half years or 39 years. And so, but that depreciation works as an offset to the income that you generate. And so what it does is, by holding the assets long-term, the value of depreciation comes in long-term ownership, not in a quick flip. So if you're buying something to renovate it and sell it, depreciation doesn't show up on, it doesn't matter to you. But if you're holding it for a long term, depreciation is a very valuable tool, because you get to offset that against your income that you earn every year. And in the early years of a deal, while the project is not performing very high, while it's stabilizing and balancing itself out, your depreciation losses can be very large. And so on paper, you can show a big paper loss. And so for high income earners or professional athletes, as an example, it works as a really great taxable offset to their income that they're generating. And so that depreciation is really valuable. And so for us, since we're looking as generational assets, and our investors are on that same platform, and who we educate and bring into the investment platform is following that same ideology, the value is in the depreciation as much as it is earned in the return on the equity that you put in year over year.
Then does that strategy comfort would-be equity partners in that they understand that you guys as principals are simply by your approach taking a long-term vision on a project?
Yeah, I would say you got to find the right like-minded investors to be on that mindset. I think that's one of the reasons why athletes have a struggling aspect of getting into real estate, because it takes 2 to 3 years, especially if you're doing ground up development, to one come online, and then obviously there's a stabilization period of that going on, and then furthermore, that as you start to see that happen, you've gotten into 5-6 years and you're really starting to see it, versus where people want to see an investment like a restaurant right away. It's built in 6 months, 9 months, and then I'm getting cash flow immediately. And yes, you're lucky if you're in some of those situations, but ultimately it's the long game, and that's where we're really focused, and we like being a part of people like that. And I think that's where we struggled, as Joel alluded to, going back to earlier, the conversation that we had when we started our fund called Air, where we had some guys that really understood it and some guys who really just didn't understand it and really didn't have the patience for it. And that's where it didn't really become frustrating, but just we saw it wasn't aligned with those right folks. So there's nothing wrong with that, but we also look at it from perspective of we want to be long-term investors and be able to really set it up for the future.
Does an athletic mindset jive with that approach in Ndamukong? And I'm in Vegas right now, and I remember a long time ago, Joe Maloof, who used to own the Sacramento Kings, the family, he said athletes are the worst gamblers because their mindset is they're always going to win, that they can win. And odds be damned, math is math. We're getting down to that, the algebra you were talking about earlier, X equals. If you stay at the table and keep playing, X will equal 0 at some point.
Yeah.
But when you approach other athletes, do you find that the mindset of I want results now, because that's sort of the way athletics plays out, except for maybe cricket. Maybe you should go get a cricket player. They have patience. But do you find that the athletic mindset doesn't jive with the investment mindset that you probably need or should have?
Yeah, there's definitely difficulty there. And then really how I look at it from a perspective, how I get over that hump is I pepper Joel with 15, 20 different deals in a week. So we can just have back to back. So as they continue to come online, I'm always getting excitement because I see this next one coming on. It did right. So that's where I guess, yes, it becomes a very difficult thing for most athletes, especially younger guys that haven't really realized they're used to quick satisfaction versus kind of a delayed satisfaction in seeing something grow.
Joel, how do you know you got a winner? Can you look right away and say, I know this is good. I know Ndamukong's going to think this is good. This is a good one. How do you know? Do you know, or how do you know?
Well, in real estate, the oldest adage is still the truest adage. Location. Right? And so if you've got a great location and you're willing to play the long game, right? And that's, we reference that a lot because it's the truth. If you're looking to make a quick buck, you can
buy GameStop.
Those deals are hard to find. Yeah, exactly. Like if you want to chase, but you ride, that give you an ulcer, right? You go up and you go down, and people ride those waves. It's like you've splashed in the ocean, and all of a sudden you jump on a wave and you're out at, the North Shore, right? And like the waves are, if you're not prepared to surf those things, the crashes can be deadly. And the crashes are coming. Real estate, even when you look at 2008, and there was a lot of people that suffered through that during that period of time, but all that real estate, if you held it, it came back, and it came back with a vengeance, right? And so real estate is best served long. It can work as a flip, there's no doubt about it, and people do and have great success with that. But our objective is to create generational wealth. Generational wealth isn't developed by flipping assets over and over. Generational wealth is created by owning assets long term. And so we look first and foremost for the location of something, and do we believe, ideally you want to get to a neighborhood where you're not the last one in, but you're not the first one in either. You're, like number 3 in line. That's ideal. So you get to ride the upswing as the neighborhood transforms. In some cases, you can actually be a part of helping transform the neighborhood where there's a number of deals that are kind of happening around you at the same time. But those are keys. It's hard. You really got to do your due diligence, and that's something that I would, and Dominican knows, and he's learned through this effort that, you get a deal and you get something, we should go look at this. And I go, hang on, we got to run the math. Like, I like the location, I like the opportunity, but we got to do the math now, because if we're going to be responsible,
what does that mean? What does run the math mean? We've all heard it, but can you take me through step 1, 2, 3? What does run the math mean on these deals?
Yes. So we have a very comprehensive pro forma underwriting that we go through that involves an analysis of the site, construction costs, the development costs and expenses associated with that, financing. How are we going to pay for it? You can, and there's this delicate balance in terms of how much equity or cash you put in versus how much you can borrow, and trying to hit that sweet spot, because we want to borrow as much as we can, because the bank's money is cheaper than the expectation of return that we have on our money. So if you put in too much equity, you dilute your return expectations. If you don't put in enough, then you expose yourself to a correction in the marketplace, and so that balance is delicate, but that's part of our analysis and what the financing looks like. And then we commission rent studies for the areas, like what we think we can generate in terms of rent. We have a same thing with our operating expenses. And then you start to manipulate when, as Sue mentioned, exit. An exit is not always selling. An exit is refinancing, right? So you look at how can we have to be able to afford to pay for this to get it built, or buy it, get it renovated and restabilized, or built and stabilized, and then refinance so we can get some of our equity back to our investors, and then provide a return. And that algorithm contemplates the depreciation and interest expense associated for all of the different things. So we wanted to deliver to our investors a comprehensive analysis of what the project looks like and what they can expect in terms of a cash to cash return, but also what the tax effect return looks like. And so in those early years, they get to book losses. And so we educate them on the value of those losses. So we're not using institutional money or like insurance companies, big equity investors. We're using individuals that are more interested in learning about it or being a part of it in those plays than an institutional equity partner might be.
How do you hedge, or do you hedge against risk? I mean, let's see, I don't know, pandemic, or I saw recently that like the cornhole folks are had a tough time because the price of lumber had shot up, on things like steel and wood go up. Do you hedge materials, or how do you approach that, or the possibility for problems like that?
Yeah, those are great questions. And I mean, that's what makes it fun to play, right? It's like, I'm sure it's like for Sue, you show up to the game and all of a sudden it's snowing, right? And he doesn't seem to wear long sleeves underneath, right? You're like, so you got to be able to adapt on the fly. And we're going through that right now. We're building a 124 unit apartment project, and the lumber prices shot up through the roof as we were going to contract. So with our contractor, which is, I happen to have some weight on that end through my day job. We decided to not buy our lumber packages, anticipating that that spike, because of kind of my knowledge of the construction industry, was actually geared just around a slowdown in overall production at the beginning of the pandemic, and that's caught back up. And we've seen, of course, is lumber prices
come
have
down, yeah.
collapsed, right? And so we don't need to buy that lumber package till November. But again, I want to reiterate, if you're looking for the long game, then it's uncomfortable and it may not be as good, but long term, you can still win if you're willing to stay in it long enough. And that's the beauty of real estate.
Ndamukong, Ndamukong, we have about 30 seconds. You have the floor to a team of would-be investors, prospective investors, professional athletes, agents. Give me your elevator pitch on HMS and why they should put the capital to work with you.
Oh, elevator pitches. I love this. So, I mean, truthfully, if you want to invest and have an opportunity to change not only your community, but also your life from a generational standpoint, I look forward to working with you. At the same time, I've built this company alongside Joel from a perspective of we want to change and be really luminaires in the space of development. And that comes in multiple different forms, whether that's market rate, affordable housing, across the board. And so you're welcome to join the party. But if you don't want to, we will continue this train at full speed ahead, as we have a lot of people that are very like-minded and excited about the journey that we're going on.
All right, Ndamukong Suh, Joel Anderson. Thanks so much, guys. I appreciate it.
Good to talk to you and good to see you again.
Thanks, Scott.
Thanks, you too.